to Live Office Hours with me, Dr. Shannon Coates. So what are we talking about today? We are talking about the concept of reframing resistance in the voice studio. I've had this conversation many times with many voice teachers. And it's around this idea that the singer I'm working with, they came into the studio and they didn't want to do warm-ups because they're boring and they don't like doing warm-ups, and I tell them that it's for their own good and so we really need to do this, and they go, but can't we just sing? Can't I just sing my song? And then I say something like, well, you don't know your song very well, and so we have to warm up, we have to get ready in order to be able to sing the song because you don't know it very well. So let's start to learn the song, and that sounds even more boring. Or we say, sure, let's sing the song, and then we'll figure out what isn't working in the song, and then we'll go back and do a warm-up to fix the thing that you didn't do right in the song. And when the singer doesn't like any of those options or feels a little defiant about those options, we get up in our feels a little bit, right? Because it feels like they're being resistant or defiant even, or giving us some attitude, or not respectful enough. And it also is bound up in this thing where we feel like we're not doing a good job teaching them because they don't want to do a warm-up, and they don't know that they're not good at their song yet. Or it becomes challenging both from the viewpoint of this student is really hard to teach and I'm frustrated by it, and they won't let me do my job. Like, I know what's right and they won't let me do my job. So what we want to do is to rethink how we approach this situation of resistance in the voice studio, especially if we are working to intentionally incorporate student-centered or student-led strategies in the voice studio. So if you are like, nope, I need to be the expert in this very specific way in the studio, this is not the video for you. You keep going and you keep doing your thing. That is all good. But if you are a little bit sick and tired of not knowing how to work with resistant singers in the voice studio other than to like assert your authority and tell them they have to do it, or go to their parents and say, this kid is really showing some behavior in the studio. You need to tell them that they need to listen to me. Or what are some strategies to make sure that they're listening to me in the studio? They're not respecting me in the studio, right? So if you're a little bit sick and tired of that, and you are very interested in incorporating more student-led or student-centered strategies into your teaching, this is the video for you. Yes, this is a thing. First step is this. Specifically when we're talking about warm-ups in the voice studio, we need to first reframe or divest ourselves from the myth that a warm-up is necessary in every single lesson, or even necessary at all, especially if you are an independent voice teacher who is working with singers who are not about to go and do a 2-hour set or an opera or a show. If you are an independent voice teacher working in a typical independent studio, working with lots of teens, some kids, probably, lots of teens, lots of avocational singers, lots of adult avocational singers, probably, choral singers, lots of folks in bands, perhaps, folks who are doing local auditions, folks who are doing maybe bigger auditions, folks who maybe want to go to school to become a performer of some kind. Very few, those singers require a warm-up in their voice lesson. Divest yourself of this myth, please. I have many live office hours where I talk about why I don't do warm-ups, why they are not as important as we seem to think they are. What happens is we get this in our head, right? Well, if I don't make sure that they warm up, they could hurt themselves. Really? What kind of singing are you doing in the studio right now that they could actually hurt themselves because they didn't warm up in the lesson? What kind of singing are you actually doing that a warm-up is going to prevent? Some people also say, yes, but they need to have this long-term understanding of how to warm up. Well, yes, but you're not teaching them how to warm up right now. You're just teaching them how to do scales or tongue trills or something else. We're just giving them stuff to do and calling it a warm-up. What we actually need to do if we want to have a warm-up, and again, this is on lots of other live office hours, is to start to work with them so they understand what their voice needs in the moment, and they then have the tools to be able to do the things that will allow their voice to do the things they want to do in that moment, right? Or in that lesson. And I can pretty much guarantee you, if you're working with your average teenager in particular, or kid in the voice studio, or average adult in the voice studio, in a typical independent voice studio, the amount of speaking or voice use that they have had that day is going to be more than enough of what they need in order to do the singing they want to do in the lesson. Way more than enough. Now, if we're talking about building technical skills, that's a different thing. Warm up. If you're talking about an actual warm-up where you're thinking to yourself, well, we've got to get the voice ready to sing, that's not necessary in most cases. So if we're talking about building technical skills, that's a different thing. Those are two separate things. Also, the other thing that comes in, our identity as an expert, our sense of legitimacy, etc., like our sense of doing right by the student. I've got to make sure that they know that they have to warm up. All of those things can influence our urgency around, but they have to warm up. Right? But do you see how those things are all about me? So the urgency around, but if they don't warm up, I will not be doing right by them. That's me. That's about me. That's a me issue. You're not actually looking at the student in front of you and saying, can they sing what they need to sing today? If they can, they don't need to warm up. So we want to start to reframe the idea of warming up as exploration and or building technical skills. And those things can happen any time in the lesson. They don't have to happen at the beginning of the lesson because the voice is already warmed up. So if we're doing an exploration of what's possible in the voice, that's a whole other thing. If I'm doing something where we're building a technical skill or finding a different coordination, whole other thing. If I'm learning a song, whole other thing. Those are not warm-up things. So first step, reframe this urgency around the necessity for a warm-up in the voice studio, especially if you are a typical independent voice teacher working with typical students. Step 2, get curious about what we are calling resistance. We are giving next steps or offering what might be the next step in this lesson situation. And we encounter resistance from the singer we're working with. We want to get curious about that. We want to start to reflect internally about that, right? Because what's the first thing that happens to us? The first thing we tell ourselves is they're being defiant. They don't respect me. They're lazy. They are badly behaved. They're unteachable. They're going through some stuff at home, so they're going to take it out on me. They're having a hard time in school, so they're going to take it out on me, and they're not going to do what I tell them to do. Again, notice how that's about me. That's about their impact on me. And I know that this is from the best of intentions. We think that this is the way that we are supposed to do our job. We think that this is the way that we are supposed to train singers, right? We think that we are supposed to be training them in this specific way, telling them what to do for their own good. But what if it's none of those things? What if it's the fact that the singer you're working with feels like they don't have options in their own lesson? And so the only way that they can communicate that they don't want to do a thing is by either being defiant, being super charming, and like distracting, or they think they can't communicate that at all, and they just comply. So many of us, when I'm talking to voice teachers and I'm saying, define for me what a good student is, tell me all of the characteristics of what you consider a good student. What comes up first? They do what I tell them to do. They practice when I tell them to practice. They learn their music on their own. In lessons, they never defy. They're not resistant. They're compliant. We tend to think of good students as being the ones who do whatever we tell them to do. But friends, that is not a compliance-based form of learning. Will we learn where I just do whatever the teacher tells me to do and I have no choice? Of course. But do you want to raise artists? Do you want to support singers to actually find their voice and to be able to know when they want to warm up and when they don't need to warm up on their own without calling you up and being like, hey, do I need to warm up for this? And can you tell me what to warm up with? Can you tell me whether I'm singing well or not? No. No, we don't. So, well, maybe you do. If you do, again, not the video for you. So if you want to work with singers who have something to say and who can say what they want to say and who are able to communicate and use their voice to do the thing they want to do with their voice and say the thing they want to say with their voice, if you want to work with singers who want to be artists and who are able to communicate artistically in that way, then that kind of learning is not the kind of learning we necessarily want to support. Compliance-based learning. What we want. Resistance, get curious around the resistance. But get curious around our response to the resistance, first of all, right? This student never does what I tell them to do. It's always a struggle. All they ever want to do is sing their song, but they're not actually good enough to sing their song yet. They don't actually know how the song goes yet. And so we have to do these warm-ups, or I have to teach them how to learn their song, and we have to go through it line by line. And if this is your experience teaching, there is a more joyful way. So as soon as I start to notice within myself that the things are coming up, this student is so disrespectful, this student doesn't listen, this student is so defiant, this student has behavioral issues. Also, I encourage you to start to think about your good students as well in the same way. Why do I think this student is a good student? Is it because they do everything I tell them to do all of the time? That's also perhaps a little bit problematic. I will put that out there. So that's the second step. Step 1, divest yourself from the myth of the necessary warm-up. Step 2, get curious about your reaction to the resistance and understand that resistance is an indication of an inability to communicate. Either an inability to communicate or a feeling that they do not have any choices around what they do in the lesson. And again, if you are a teacher who says, no, they don't have choices around what they do in the lesson, this is not the video for you. Or maybe you are that teacher and you're like, oh wait, there's another way? In this case, this is the video for you, because students do have choices in their lesson. We're talking about voice here. What are you talking about? Yes, they have choices. Do you want students to be engaged and love their singing and love their voice and be able to do the things they want to do with their voice? Give them choices. Okay. Compliance gets labeled as a good student. Defiance gets labeled as problem student. Right? Both can indicate a situation where the teacher has all of the power and the student feels like they have no choices. Both of those can be that. So here's the invitation. We want to stop interpreting resistance as misbehavior and start seeing it as data. This is just information. A student resists doing a warm-up. That is data. And the data is, this is not what's going to work for them today. Okay. It's not about me. It's not about my teaching. It's not about my skill. It's not about them disrespecting me. It's not about any of those things. It's about the fact that this isn't going to work for them today. So the third step then is, once that is data, we can stop weaponizing our expertise. Big fancy words. We have the training and the expertise. Of course we do. And the student is there to learn from us, of course. And we are paying for our training, for our expertise, of course. That is valuable. But when we see defiance or resistance in a student, often what do? We weaponize our expertise to control them, to make sure that they comply. For their own good. Don't get me wrong. This is for their own good, right? Lots of bad things happen for someone else's own good. So for their own good. And also because we think that that's what we're supposed to be doing. So what do? We tell them that they have to do it. We bargain with them, right? We say no, but you have to do a warm-up and then you can do your songs. We bargain. Okay, if you do 3 warm-ups, then you can do this song. Okay, but if you sing the song, then you're going to find out that you should have done a warm-up, right? So then we're going to have to do the warm-up anyway because you don't know how to sing your song well enough yet. We weaponize our expertise. We don't give them more choices. We just double down. What if the goal isn't to make them do the things we know will help them? We know will help them. What if that is not the goal? What if that is not our role as an expert? What if Our role as the expert in the studio is to offer them options so that they can figure out what works for them and so that they can understand how their voice works and what their voice needs. What if our role as the expert is not to tell people what to do for their own good and because they're paying us? What if our expertise could be used to offer options and to support learners to figure out what works for them? What if that's our role? What if that's how we use our expertise? We have the 3 steps, right? What's the first step? Divest ourselves from the myth of the necessary warm-up. 2, get curious about resistance and see if we can look at resistance as data rather than a personal attack. When we can do that, we can go to step 3, which is to use our expertise to support learning rather than to enforce compliance. What does it look like? Here we go. We have a singer in the studio who wants to warm up. We shift the power by doing this. Rather than telling them what to do, how to warm up, and telling them when they've warmed up enough, right? So what do? We go la 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 la, great, la 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 la, and we get them to the highest note that they can still use, and then we start moving back down again. Do they know why we moved back down? No, they have no idea. They don't know when they're supposed to stop. Or maybe they know that they're supposed to stop when they can't do it anymore. Friends, that's not supporting learning. What do? We say, what do you want to sing today that you can't sing yet? Or what's the voice use for today that you feel you are not able to do yet? How do you know that you can or cannot do it yet? How do you know? You have a sense of why you can't, I don't know, belt the thing or do the agility in that thing or, figure out the vowel for that thing. But here, all of those things, though, those are not about warm-ups. Those are about technical skills. Warm-ups and technical skills are 2 different things. Okay, great. So there's something that you are not yet ready to do, XYZ thing. So what kind of exploration, what kind of coordination exploration, what kind of exercise, what kind of warm-up, if you want, will get you closer to being able to do that thing? Great. Let's do that. Where would you like to start? How will you know when you are able to do that thing? In other words, how do you know when the warm-up is done or when the exercise has accomplished its purpose? Teachers have yet to work with a teacher for the first time who can answer the question, how did you know that it was the right time to move from warm-ups or even a technical exercise into the singing part? What did you hear? What changed? How did you know that exercise was successful? Well, they could sing it, but they could sing it before. What was successful? You are only doing warm-up exercises by rote because you're supposed to. You aren't thinking through how will I know when this warm-up is successful or when the thing that we're trying to accomplish is actually accomplished. Of course they're going to be boring for the singers we're working with. Of course singers don't want to do exercises. It's boring. I just sing until my teacher tells me I'm done. And of course they're not going to warm up at home or do exercises at home. It's boring. No one wants to do that. I'm telling you, there's another way. It doesn't have to be this way. All right. So then we follow their cues, right? So Shannon, let's get to the actual subject, which is what about the singers who don't want to warm up, right? The singers who come in and we say, okay, let's start with a warm up. And they say no. Maybe some of you will stop doing that. Or change your language. What do we do? What do you want to sing today? And they say the one song that you know. They're still struggling over pitches and rhythms. And also, they don't have the mix down in their voice yet. They don't even know how to use their voice on the song yet. So that's the song they want to sing. That's the only song they want to sing. And you're like, okay. So the next question is, what part of that song, not, yes, but you don't know that song very well yet, so we have to learn it first. No, you don't. You see how I just weaponized my expertise there? I say, what do you want to sing today? And what do I do when they tell me what they want to sing? I say, no, not that one. You don't know it well enough. And also, you still can't do the belt part. Or you still don't have the agility for that run. Or you don't have the high notes yet. Or it's too quiet in the middle voice. So no, we have to do warm-ups first so that you can sing that song. I gave my student a little option and then I snatched it back and told them that was a bad choice. I know better. Bad choice. Friends, no wonder singers are ornery. Of course they're ornery. They know that even if you do give them a choice, they're still going to be wrong. Ouch. But Shannon, they can't sing the song if they don't know it. They know some of it. Pinky swear. And if they don't know any of it, then do some sight reading with them. Do some call and response with them. Friends, get creative. Which part do you know the best? Is it one line from the chorus? Is it the opening part of the song? Is it the first line of the song? Which part feels like it's going to be the most successful? Which part do you know the best? If they don't know the song, or if they're still learning the song, or if there's something still going on in the song, right? If they already know the song, that's a different conversation. But this is, I'm talking about, like, specifically about, like, the reason we needed to warm up in the first place is because you don't have the skill yet to sing the song you want to sing, right? They're going to know something. So say they only know one line in the chorus, a half a line in the chorus. Amazing. That's where we're going to start. I would like to hear that half a line in the chorus with a tongue twirl. We're going to do it like 3 or 4 times over and over. I'm going to sing it once, you sing it back. You tell me how you know it's good. How do you know it's learned? What's great about it? How do you know it's successful? Is it smooth? Great. How much smoother can it be? Is it strong? Great. How much stronger can it be? Let's work on strong. And we work on it with a tongue trill, lip trill, vowel shape, za, za, zas. You know what? You only know, like, the one line of Happy Birthday. Why is that song? I don't know, whatever, let's say. So you only know Happy Birthday to you. Great. You know what? That's fine. Let's do that song with, what's your favorite food? Lasagna? Amazing. Lasagna, 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 lasagna. Wait, I sang 2 parts, but you know what I mean? All right, let's do la 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 la, la 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 la. Uh-huh. What do you like about it? What do you love about it? It feels strong? Great. Then we do call and response for the next part of the song and feel strong on that. Or we move up and down in pitch. We go up by a semitone, we go down by a semitone. We go up by a third, we go down by a third. We just build on the thing that's already there. So is that a warm-up-ish? I mean, it's a preparation to get into this studio space maybe. But you know what it really is? It's building technical skill. And also learning the song without learning the song, without having to do like one. We're building on the thing they already know. And also, now they start to make choices for themselves because they know it's safe to make a choice. So they know that if whatever they want to work on, you're going to be there supporting them to then build on that part. And you're going to use your expertise to help them build the thing versus saying, nope, wrong again. And we're asking them too, what do you love about that part? So if they already know the song relatively well, or they can sing it all the way through, then great, you want to work on that song? Terrific. I'd love to hear it once. You tell me which part is the most successful or which part you love the most. Great. So that one little part, terrific. Can we hear that, like, can I just hear that like 4 or 5 times? That one little part, yeah, amazing. What do you love about it? Why does it feel so good? How do you know it's successful? Because it feels so free? Oh, because your body feels like it's going like this every time? Amazing. What other parts of the song would you like to have this in? Yeah? The opening? Great, let's do it. The mark of a truly effective teacher and someone who is truly using their expertise to support learning is someone who trusts their expertise and knowledge to be able to support the singer's exploration, not to tell them what to do. Great. Figure out the part that they know the best and build up from that. Add 2 words that side and 2 words that side. Add a phrase this side, we'll do it by rote with the tongue twirl, and then we'll go back and add the tongue, like learn the song together, support them to learn the song, and also model how to learn music through exploration and joy versus there's a place for that. Sure, there's a place for that. But at the top of the learning process, especially if you're working with teenagers and children. All right. So the bigger picture here. Resistance is not a behavioral issue. It's just feedback. It's just data. And it's not a them issue. Of course there are boundaries. Of course there are things in the studio that are not acceptable. Of course. but someone resisting doing a warm-up? Come on, friends. We are going to reframe resistance as communication, and then we are going to strengthen agency, safety, trust in the studio by supporting their choices. Student-led doesn't mean chaos, right? So if you are resistant to student-centered or student-led pedagogy because you think that it's just chaos and we just do whatever the singer wants, you fundamentally misunderstand what this is about. And you may also be a little bit afraid of losing control, of not being the expert, of not being respected, right? Get a little bit curious about that. Doesn't mean chaos, it means collaboration. The more we practice this, I promise you, the more joy, the more curiosity, the more engagement, the more motivation the singers you work with will have, and the more joy and ease you will have in your teaching. I pinky swear. The more we let go of the need to tell singers what to do, especially for their own good, and start to collaborate and offer options and support singers in their learning, the easier the teaching becomes. All right, key takeaways. When singers resist what we planned, it's not about control, it's about connection. So we want to see if we can get curious and establish connection. Something that you might want to do is start to think back. This past week, you probably had one or two experiences of resistance in the studio. Think back. How could I have reframed that experience of resistance? Is that student actually a bad student, or someone who's just going through a bad time, or a behavioral problem? Or is there another way that could I have taken that as simply data, not personal, not a challenge to my expertise in any way? And how could I have reframed that situation? And what am I going to do the next time I see that in the studio? And friends, if you had 0 moments of resistance in the studio, every single singer you work with does exactly what you tell them to do, looks to you adoringly after every single interaction. May I offer that I'm not going to say you are a controlling teacher. I'm not going to say that you are working from a compliance-based pedagogy, but I am saying you may want to ask yourself some questions. You may want to get curious about why that is. If you want to dig deeper into this, I am taking enrollment for the Voice Ped Undergrad. We start in January. Enrollment ends mid-December. So if that is something of interest to you, if you would like to work this out in real time and with a cohort, a small cohort of voice teachers who are also working this out in real time, over 10 months, starting in January. We go January to October. Check it out. So that's it for today. Have fun playing with some of these reframes. Let me know how it goes.